compare this one. I have two of them. So this one, interesting, has a little bit too much on the right-hand side, just a little bit. You see this large portion in the bottom, certainly could darken that to minimize the effect of that down there. But then I saw the other image. Same shot. I want to compare the two so you get an idea of, see what I'm talking about related to bringing the user's eye to what you want the user to see or the viewer to see. The viewer sees a lot of that rock. Even though the waterfall is dominating the image, there's a lot of that rock that brings the eye to it, where this one is the same shot, just with less of that rock down there. So you could have scrunched it. But when you were there photographing it, take the number of shots with different compositions to give you that aspect of the image. So come back to this one, and if I crop it, see, I'll lose that little area there. So I was about to crop it, I won't. I will use the scrunch idea on it to minimize that portion and emphasize the water. And even as a long rectangular, that looks better that way. In fact, now that I see that, let's do image size, disconnect the connections, and let's make it wider. That maybe is too wide. So let's go back. You get the idea of making it a little more of a rectangular image. Right now, on that image, I would say that was pretty good to better. You'll see the ones that I'm going to show you shortly of what I think are really great images. Here's another one. Look at the beauty of the green all around and the composition of the waterfall. So good question. And on this one, I think as we really come in on this, I don't want to lose that bottom. So that means I'll scrunch this one more and that area there, because I want to bring your eye to the waterfall more than the rest of the area, even though it really is so beautiful. So let's scrunch that. Keep the beauty of that scene. And here, good question. This is taking it from okay to, I think, very good image. Need to bring in just a little bit from the left and the right, a little bit more. Now we've gone from what I think is good to very good. And I think even a little bit more scrunch on the top to emphasize the water more. And bring out the highlights. Well, before I bring out the highlights of the water, I'll bring out some detail, if I can, if there's something in there in the shadow areas. I guess not. Yeah, a little bit. Ah, there it is.
John, if I may, when you scrunch, I'm amazed that it doesn't look distorted.
No.
Still, it seems to fit.
Yes, it does. And that's the good comment. And that's the determination of how far you can go with it, is to watch it to see that it still seems to be a natural, that you're not making it look way too much. Yeah. So here now, and you see the lines from where I scrunched. I just should have expanded that a little bit, but let's look at the image now, as that is a very good waterfall image. In fact, I think I would, looking at it now, just do a little bit more scrunch on the side so that the eye comes in from that way. And look at the waterfall. Now that I've said that, and I look at the waterfall and how it's coming off the right-hand side, let's flip it and see what it looks like this way. And how does your eye look at the waterfall? Much differently. See how you come up through here, and the darker area in the upper right now brings you down, and the light area coming through the trees works in relation to the waterfall. So we've gone from okay, but to a good image, very good image. That presents itself really well. Same questions, same issues here. Which it's reading left to right, taking you right off the bottom of the right-hand side. What do you want me to see? Do you want me to see the waterfall on the right-hand side or on the left-hand side? So a number of things would have to be done to this image to make it even a good image for a waterfall. Now we'll get into a little tougher aspects about, the image is really sort of a special image, with all that's happening within this image, and the boat and the water and the waterfall and foreground, say a foreground, middle ground, background, really working well all the way around. To me, this is a beautiful scene and not a waterfall scene, as we have some of these others that we've been looking at as true waterfalls. Another one, same comment. It's such a beautiful overall image, and there are some waterfalls there, but it's not a waterfall image. It's a beautiful scenic overall. And on this one of the things I'll do rather quickly for you is I want to shift the emphasis from way up here at the top because it's so bright up there. So I'll just do some things quickly to show you what I mean by that, is to let it be a little darker up there to bring your eye back down to where I want your eye to go. And of course, this is a low res image, so you're not getting all the pixels that I would want in some areas, but I'll just darken some things to give you an idea. Use the sponge tool a little bit to make this image jump out a little bit more. Using the highlights that are there. So it's a beautiful image, but it's not, for me, it's not a waterfall image. But boy, what a difference. And look at the difference of just those changes on that image to bring you right into the center of the image. And this last one in that category, what a beautiful fall. First thing for me on this one, flip it so that I'm looking right up into it. And this one demonstrates that even more. See how you're coming in from the left and there's more space on the right of this image. So your eye comes over and you wander around on the right-hand side, and this brings you down and out the right-hand side. When I flip that, that now brings you in, and this tree creates a strong foreground, middle ground, background. And I think there's a little too much at the top of this, so let's bring it down so that we now are emphasizing the waterfall even more. And I'll do a scrunch on the image from the left, just enough to force the viewer to come in from that side and stay right just on the waterfalls. And look what it's starting to do in relation to the shape of the waterfall. So this is really now a very pretty waterfall image. I'll do one other thing on this. Let me make this bigger. And I'll distort the entire image. We're just bringing it up. So I've stretched the entire image at the same time rather than doing a go back, Joe. To emphasize that waterfall even more. So rather than crop, I stretched it, which gave me, stretched the whole image, which gave me more of the waterfall area. Lost my share. Okay, now we will go to what I consider wow waterfall images. That's a waterfall image. Wow. And let me change this to I will take this image into Adobe Camera Raw so that I can remove the blue easily by, again, clicking on the saturation, click on the targeted adjustment tool, bring the cursor over, put it in there, and let's change this to white. And you'd think, oh yeah, that looks pretty good. However, I'm going to come up to the Basics tab and see just under the word Basic, white balance as shot, or do auto. Now watch the image when I click auto, how much pure white that is. It's adjusting the white balance overall. And that's a very nice little feature about Adobe Camera Raw under the Basic tab. Auto, as shot, custom, but just auto. Very nice. I won't do a lot more to this in Adobe Camera Raw, but look at the difference of taking it into this level back to where it was, open to this. And one last thing I would consider doing on this, two things. One is get the sponge tool, and let's just bring out a little bit of the color in the bush there. And the dodge tool on midtones. And bring out a little of the detail of that tree that's there, just a little bit. So we go from here, here. And even though up front I said this is a wow image, look at the difference of that. And you could think about one last part of just scrunching it, the whole image, not a portion of it. Let's just make it more of a vertical, which will emphasize the water flow. You want the viewer to feel your image, not just see it. You want the viewer to feel what is happening with it. That's a wow image. A little bit of too bright up in this upper area, but look at the beauty of the waterfall here. Now, at first I thought, okay, gotta see it, flip it, let's take a look at it this way. And it reads all right this way, but actually I like it this way, even though it's bringing me down and off the other side. It just seems to show me the waterfall better this way with all this in the middle here. But I thought, let's just darken some of that area up in the top and let's bring out some of the, remove some of the color so that I have white water. So here it is with the water brought in white. I'll do a little bit of foreground darkening so that I'll push your eye into the image and a little bit more up in the upper part. Keep the color up there, but to take off some of these brighter areas and then emphasize the center of the waterfall so that that's where you will look the minute you come into the image. It's just in that area there. No, that's a little too bright. Go back, and that was on midtones. I'll try highlights just instead. Yes, that's much better. Look at that and emphasize the greens so that right in this area, so that's where the viewer will come in. That's a waterfall, no doubt.
John, if you know the original photographer, you should send back your correction and a bill.
They'll send me a picture of a hand with a middle finger. This is really a beautiful waterfall image. Look at the scenery in the background, the clouds up in the top, the foreground, the rocks. The only thing I would consider on this is the waterfall being so blue. Now, there's a lot of blue in here that I don't want to take out. So in this case, I would make a selection of the waterfall. Take that into Adobe Camera Raw. Go to Color Mixer, Saturation, Good Adjustment Tool. I want that water to be brighter. You see, that's actually too bright now that I see it. So let's go back here and take it out just a little bit. In fact, I'll do it this way. Another way to do this is to do a hue saturation. Since I've made a selection, if I do the hue saturation, you see that it built the mask with that selection. So what is white will allow the color change, where it's black, it will not. So now I'll just go up to saturation and click on blues and lower how much I want to remove so that I can judge it in relation to the rest of the image. That works really well. On this image, I would like to open up the foreground a little bit more for the detail here on the side. Oh, get on the right layer, John. And the last thing I would want to do on this is to make it a little wider. So I'll come up to image size and change the width. What a beautiful image. Now that's a waterfall, and that's a striking image overall. You can keep playing with this. Now I see other things. Like, oh, yeah, look at the background area there. That's really pretty. Come up through here, down through here. We're in this area. Yeah, yeah, all that works really nicely. How about adding a little more color to the sky up there? So we have an image that looks like that. That's an outstanding waterfall image. And for me, it is.
That's a picture postcard.
Well, sometimes that's a bad thing.
There you go.
Usually it looks white in the camera. You may look at the image, the captured image, after you've shot it. Look at the captured image on the back or on your screen of your camera and see. And it also relates to how you have set certain features on your camera related to capturing color. So there's so many aspects about looking at it. But what I had talked about earlier, once I know how to do things in the Photoshop, I'm going to take a lot of the pixels and change them how I need to, as long as I can get those pixels captured well. I think this is a stunning image. There are some things, waterfall certainly dominates on that side, but there are a number of things here that I would want to change. And that is that there are some aspects of the sky that could be brought out. You see these sort of streak kinds of things, which I think are very pretty. And for this image, the waterfall is taking up a good area, but let's think about scrunching to bring, the reason I came up with the concept of scrunch, let me explain that, because so many people are just using it and then think, why? If I cropped, I actually start losing detail. See, if I crop, I lose this detail in the foreground here. So I just didn't want to crop things. I thought, well, what could I do? Oh, if I keep everything that way. Now, actually, I'm making it when I'm scrunching. I certainly am making it smaller, but I'm not losing any of the detail. I'm keeping it there and then deciding how much scrunching I want to do on it. And that's why I came up with that concept, because if you crop, you're actually losing detail in your image. Now, we look at this one. After having scrunched that side, I see this side is a little bit too dominant for me. So I would want to scrunch that side a little bit. Whoop. That was the crop tool. I went to regular marquee tool. Because I want to emphasize that waterfall even more. Now, when I have it, as I start making these kinds of changes to an image, it gives me another idea on how I really want the image presented to emphasize something. And for me, if I had shot this, and I didn't, this wasn't my image, I would want more foreground. See how the water is just running off the base there? I would prefer to have some more foreground. I'll just darken the sky a little bit more in some of the areas here so that call attention to the waterfall even more.
John?
Yes.
Yep. I'd like to highlight the two people just behind the waterfall a little bit so you see them a little bit better.
I see that. Yeah, I see that. But they're doing nasty things back there. I don't think.
Yeah, okay.
The way you'd have to do that, and you see when I brought it up, there weren't enough pixels really to do a whole lot, but you could emphasize that aspect. But you'll see another one that I'm going to show you. See, good point. You see the highlight there now related to that. Look at that image overall. That is just such a striking image. Let's do more things to it. Yes? Do you have a question? I would like to make this a little taller image. So let's just change the height on this one. So, look at the difference. I'll go to history. That way, that way. Boy, does that dominate now. Look at the difference. Quite an image, really quite an image. And here's where we were at the beginning. Such a beautiful shot. And I think what we've done to it emphasizes it even more as a waterfall image.
John, I have a question. It's Mary.
Yes.
Why did you change the image height on one of those last changes there, as opposed to stretching the top?
Because if I stretch just the top, then I'm keeping the whole image at the bottom part the same perspective. I'll do it for you so you see it. But by just stretching the image, everything stretches together and keeps it together as a particular emphasis. And what you're bringing out is a really good point, that you may want to do things two different ways. And this is why you end up spending more hours working on things than anything else. And your husband says, "Are we going to have dinner soon?"
Yeah.
If you do this, you're getting just that upper portion, and it works, rather than the whole image being stretched. So it's just a matter of, sometimes I do it one way. In this case, I thought it would work fairly easily to just stretch the top part by just changing the
height.
Yeah.
Thank you.
An image. Okay. I have so many others that are so neat to see. Okay. How about this one? Talk about a waterfall. Remove the bottom portion here. What a beautiful image. And just bring out a little bit of the highlights in the center part of this so that you come right in there instantly and bring out some of the color by first of all, lightening it a bit, and then use the sponge tool on saturate and bring out some of that color. Look at that image. Here, I'm sorry, from here to here. But what a striking image. Now that's a very interesting waterfall image. Put this in perspective to some of those ones I showed you right in the beginning, where the waterfall was only 10% of the image.
Yeah.
Okay, you talked about people. Look at this shot. Now,
wow,
way too bright at the top. So you would really need to do a number of things to darken this and to bring out the emphasis on the people, because this is such an interesting image. Now, if I do it so that I'm bringing you much more into the image and into those people so that you see that, and I'll come back to the way it opened in a minute here. But I want to open up some of this area here. And in fact, rather than taking it into the Adobe camera, I'll just desaturate a little bit of the color here. And do a little bit of darkening. One last piece related to the people.
Looks like a terrible place to be standing. That's crazy.
Now, on this one, as I get to see it this way, the upper part is a little bit too much. Now, I could scrunch it, or, Mary, what I could do here is select all, and then just stretch the whole image, which then gives me more height of the people and the bottom part, where if I stretched only the upper part, I wouldn't have been stretching that at the same time.
John, I have a question. This is Rebecca. On
Yeah.
a couple of the images, you stretched it this way, and on a couple you changed the image size. And I was wondering what the difference between those two is.
It's sort of what Mary asked. If I want to keep all the pixels in the image stretching, then I changed the image itself. If I wanted to adjust only a portion of the image, like on this one now, even though I stretch it that way, if I wanted to stretch just the upper part without stretching the height of the people, then I would do it that way and just stretch that upper portion. See, I could do that without affecting the bottom.
I see, thank you.
That's the difference, and it's just a matter of how you see it. But in this one, I thought, well, it would be just as neat to stretch the entire image. And so I did it that way, from here to there, to stretch everything at the same time. I just think this, so think about this in relation to those first waterfall images that we looked at earlier and how this compares to that. And boy, those people against that waterfall brings out such an interesting aspect to it. The thing is, you've got to find people you can pay to stand in places like that. Doesn't work. All right.
Just Photoshop them in.
One last one here. This is really an interesting aspect of whatever this water is doing, and zooms up in that way. But again, let me just see what it looks like. Taking it this way. And this sort of brings you in. I think it works both ways. It's just a matter of personal preference now. The only thing on this one would be to darken that upper area a little bit, open some of the area around the waterfall as it's coming down in. You see, I'm opening up some of that area in there. Mm-hmm. Now you get to see it even more. Here's a nice foreground, a place to stand. And as I'm opening some of these images, some of the portion of the image, and I'll use the sponge tool to bring out a little bit more color in the trees that makes this even more interesting that way and highlights the main area of where I want your eye to go. And as I'm doing that, I think, wow, but this is a little overpowering on this side. So how about if I just, well, let me take it a little differently. Yeah, how about if I just scrunch this side a little bit, and that'll make it more of a rectangle, more of a vertical image, but I don't want to lose that aspect of that spray of the water coming up. So we'll do it that way. Take a look. And, you know, you don't know until you do it. You see how it looks. Yeah. What an interesting image. Now, compare this to those first few waterfall shots that we did. This is just special image. Okay, all. That's it for today.